episode of Music in Paranoid Times. I'm Juliette Jagger. I'm here with my co-host Al Capo.
Hey, how are you?
And our guest today is music industry veteran and former senior VP of creative at Warner Chappell Music, Judy Stakee. Welcome to the show, Judy.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So I want to start by kind of just doing a little bit of backstory on you and your career. You began your music industry career in the late 70s, working for Arista Records under the legendary Clive Davis.
Mm-hmm.
From there, you went on to work as a general professional manager at Screen Gems Music, where you looked after the careers of several award-winning songwriters, including the likes of Carole King and Barry Mann, which is like super impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And before spending 20 plus years at Warner Chappell, where you were responsible for signing, developing, managing their sort of broad roster of artists, which included Sheryl Crow, Michelle Branch, Jewel, Katy Perry, Gavin DeGraw, and a whole slew of others. So obviously you've worked in a variety of roles over the course of your career, but I wonder if you can tell us a bit about what keeps you drawn to working with songwriters after all this time in the business.
I spent over 30 years in the traditional music business, and I was a music publisher, and so my job was to go out and sign and develop songwriters. When you're with a huge company, you get involved in a lot of aspects of the career, the administration and the contracts. And not that I was not their lawyer or anything, but you are in charge of a wide range of things that go along with publishing.
Sure.
And when I left 10 years ago to start my own company, all of a sudden it was like, wow, I can do whatever I want. What do I actually want to do, and what do I really love to do? And what I realized was that my passion is educating writers on what they need to do in order to have their careers. Because nowadays there are a lot more workshops and classes and schools that provide as much information as they can. However, I do have a bird's eye view of it. And way back when, there was no class on how to be a songwriter. It was, I play the guitar and I write poetry and I can sing. It's like, I want to be a songwriter. It's like, it takes a little bit more than that. And so that's why I keep doing what I do, is because it is such my passion. There is nothing better for me that makes me feel better than when I can give someone a piece of information and inspire them to go to the next step, to give them a piece of information that unlocks the key to them having, to having a better journey, so whatever it may be, it's being able to help somebody.
Yeah, you've been known to be a champion of both the songwriter and the song. Can you talk to us a bit about what being a champion for artists means, and how going to bat for your acts has changed over the years, particularly as we've moved into like the digital age and the streaming culture that we're in now?
When the internet first came out, there was some kind of platform for the music industry, and a whole bunch of the boys got together, and they decided to think, well, who is the best woman lawyer, and who's the woman A&R person? And they had this list of all these like titles, and I was the champion of the songwriter.
Amazing.
And so I was dubbed by them. I was relentless. When I liked a song, when I liked an act, I was relentless. I mean, to the point where Ronnie Millsap's publisher, finally, I became friends with him, but he just said, would you please do not send this song again? I was like, Brittany, it's perfect for him. And he said, yes, but have you really listened to the lyric? I said, of course I have. It's a great lyric. He goes, the guy is blind. There was a line about like watching or seeing or, the whole thing. And I was like, oh God, I missed that. I really missed that, But I loved what I loved. And, it's like, I mean, if you had to sell anything, because I don't really consider myself a salesperson, though that's what's on my tax returns, I loved the music. I just loved the music. What has become apparent to me over the years, and even more so in the last 9-10 months, is how important the song is. I mean, without the song, you don't get the project, you don't get the photo shoot, you don't get the marketing plan, you don't get anything. It's like, you have to write great songs. And so the intention in which I guide and mentor my songwriters is that should be your first intention, is I want to be great. There is no having just an album cut, as we used to call them, just a good old song these days. It's like, if you really want to have a career out of this, you have to be great at what you do, which takes time and money. It takes time, to do it.
Like, what's a song that you really believed in from day one?
Sheryl Crow was such a great example, because I actually have been writing about this, and from the day that I met Sheryl, which was on her birthday in 1988, and from when her album was released in August 6th of 1993, which was my birthday, that was almost 5 years. Okay, like four and some years. It was really from when I signed her, which was like January of 1990. It was December 31st. That was 2.5 years. Okay, that a little over 2.5 years. That in that time, I mean, I knew it from the beginning. I knew it from the moment I met her, from the moment I heard her music, from that first day. I knew that there was something special in front of me. And my job is, how do you present that to people? How do you best present what I've got? Do you present it all wrapped up in a bow? Do you present it just on a silver platter? I mean, how do you do it? And we went from being in a studio with a grand piano and just having people come in and hear her play her songs on the piano. I mean, she was amazing. Okay. And she would just come off the Michael Jackson tour. So it was getting her away from the backup singer image. And then there was a band. We did one showcase one night with a full band and great players and all that. But that's expensive to keep up and to keep showcasing. So then I went around to different record companies and played a couple new songs and kept peddling this was in about a 3, 4, or 5 month period. And I remember just, one A&R guy, wanting to put her with staff songwriters. No offense, but, they wanted to put her with Diane Warren and whoever else was the, soup du jour at the time. And I was just like, no, you've got to be kidding. That's not what I just was like, and I was really good friends with him, so I could do this, but it was like, you guys don't get it. You are way off the mark here, And it was just this, but I just kept going. And I think that was also what really sealed my champion of the songwriter, is because, when everybody else was like, I don't get it. Because everybody else was Sheena Easton and Laura Branigan, and it was very pop and it was very synthesizers. And,
right.
Sheryl was a pair of jeans and a guitar, and she could play any instrument, and she had perfect pitch, and she was a great songwriter. And it's like, what do we do with her? And it's like, what do you mean? What do you do with her? It's like, what do you mean? So yeah, I when I'm passionate about something, I keep going. And music, like I said, is easy to keep going.
When I start writing a song, because I'm a songwriter, I always start with the acoustic guitar and kind of try to make this campfire chordy version of the song before we even think about production, before we even think what direction, because it's always comes back to what you said is the song. When you listen to a song, what are you listening to? Is it do you just want to hear the bare bones acoustic and voice, or do you want to hear the production? Do you want to hear everything? What's it that really clues you in when you're listening to a song?
I want to hear the song presented in the best way it should be presented. I mean, if it's going to be a dance song, then I want to hear full production.
Right.
If it's a song you've written for Josh Groban, then a piano vocal is fine. Okay. Yeah. So it all depends on who you're writing for.
Whatever serves the song.
Yeah. Whatever serves the song. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's, that can be anything. I just think it needs to be good quality. So even if it's piano vocal. Now, that's not to say that, if you're really good friends with, an A&R person or something, that you've got a brand new song and you sing it into your iPhone and you send it to them, that's fine if you have the relationship,
Of course.
But at the very beginning, you are trying to get the date.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to impress. And so you want to show them that you know what you're doing. So you don't really need a full-on produced demo for Josh Groban. That would be kind of silly because usually you can hear what you can hear. You can do it simpler. So knowing that you can send in something that will just really show off the song shows that you know what you're doing.
I want to talk a bit about your sort of methodology that you use when you're working with artists. We talked a bit about you striking out on your own and starting, your own company, which is the Judy Stakee company. And that has sort of been designed as, a launch pad to discover and develop artists. And so I know in doing that, you've developed your own method, which has been outlined in your book, which is called the Songwriter Survival Guide. And that kind of focuses on helping artists tap into their creative and personal truths as songwriters and sort of using that as a place to write from. So I wonder if you can take us through your methodology and your outlook when you're working with songwriters.
My methodology is comprised of 6 tools that lay the foundation for a career. These 6 tools act as a map, okay? So if you come to me and say, I want to be a great songwriter, then I would need to give you a map on how you would get there. If you wanted to be a great athlete, it'd be like, okay, you need to exercise and you need to do this and you do, if you want to be a cook, it would be the same thing. You would need to put certain things in place. So these 6 tools are the foundation. So what I make sure of with my clients is that they have a creative process. And a creative process is the time and the space and the tools that you give to your art and to yourself. If you want to make better songs, if you want to write songs, then you have to have 3 hours on a Thursday night, at your house, with your co-writers and all that, and the necessary tools around you. Just like a cook would need, to make a cake, would need a bowl and spoons and, an oven and all that. So the 6 tools are this. I divide them into 2 questions. So the first question is, what is a song? Well, a song is the integration of your voice, your lyric, and your melody. So in your creative space, okay, in your room here, you're going to have a process to keep your voice in good shape. You're going to have a process to keep your lyrics, which are your stories, which you will be telling the rest of your life. You tell a story every time you write a song. So you have to become a great storyteller. And thirdly, you have to make sure that your melodies are luscious and flexible and versatile and strong and all of that you need your melodies to be, the realization through your voice or an instrument. So those 3 things, your voice, your lyrics, and your melody. For the rest of your life as a songwriter, you have to make sure that all 3 of those are in working order. Your voice, you talk with your voice and you sing with your voice, but there's not a lot of difference. So it's not just how you write in a song, but what are you going to say in a meeting? How are you going to say it? And like I said, your lyrics are your stories, and your melodies, well, those are your emotions. That's what you're feeling. The other question is, how do you get better? How do you develop yourself? Because that's what you're expected to do. There's nobody to do it for you. You have to develop yourself into this career. As I used the example before, if you wanted to go to the Olympics and be a runner, I would say, okay, well, tomorrow you're going to have to start working out and no more chocolate cake and 50 push-ups a day. You would have to do something for your mind. You would have to read at least 3 volumes of rules if you're going to go to the Olympics and know exactly what you're getting into. And thirdly, you would have to do something for your soul. You haven't been that confident lately. Maybe you need to go to a therapist, or maybe you need a retreat, or maybe you need to do some meditation. You have to work on your body, your mind, and your soul to develop yourself. Those are the only things you have real control over. And out of all 3 of those, your body is really the only thing you have control over, that you can actually physically change, okay? It would take me a lot to tell you not to love somebody, but if I can get you to do a handstand in the middle of the room, you're going to see the world a lot differently. So it's body, mind, and soul that you have to develop in order for your voice, your lyrics, and your melodies to be strong. And it's those 6 tools that if you can look at your life through that filter. And so when you are looking at your life and you're going, it's not working, I'm not getting ahead, I'm not getting the meetings I'm supposed to get. Okay, let's look at this. Is there something going on with your body? well, look at how you're sitting in the chair. He's sitting there talking to you, and you're sitting over here looking like this and doing your thing. Maybe we need to work on your posture. You know, I mean, it can be as simple as that, or it could be, you know, your storytelling is, you're not a great storyteller yet. We need to work on that. So what part of the car do we need to work on so it will go fast and get you where you want to go? So that's it in a little nutshell.
That's super interesting, because I think that we really, especially in this day and age, it's very easy for us to not consider the integration of those things and how they impact all the other aspects of our life. You know, we may be hitting our heads against the wall about something and not really looking at, you know, as you say, body, mind, and soul, and the sort of interplay between them, and the sort of impact that those things have on things that are happening, you know, over here. So I think that's such an amazing place to come at it, you know, from as far as your art, you know.
Well, your voice doesn't exist without your body. So we start right there, and everyone's like, I'm like, just listen to that, kids, for 1 second. Your voice doesn't exist without your body. So if your body is not feeling good, you know, if you have heartburn all the time, you're not going to be in a good mood.
This is true.
I had it once, and that was enough to never have it again. It was, oh my God, I wasn't nice to anybody. How could you be it?
Judy, are you a songwriter yourself?
I am.
You are. So do you play an instrument and you sing and the whole 9 yards, or what's your deal?
Well, I grew up, you know, I played 13 years of piano lessons and self-taught guitar and sang my whole entire life, and till there was no internet when I got out of college and started working. God, I found publishing though. So I have been writing for the last few years. I'm not a great musician. So I am one of those, and I tell my clients, like, that's why God made other people. You know, it's like there are great musicians out there, and I want to work with them.
Are you a better lyricist than a musician?
I'm a much better lyricist, much better top liner than I am. I'd rather have an artist in the room too. I'm an okay singer, but I am not a great singer. It's not something I've kept up with. You know, I can sing along with the radio just fine.
Yeah.
So that's my choice, is to do a threesome, and to have one be the music producer guy and one be the singer. Take those duties. Not that everybody doesn't write, but yeah.
As an extension of that, you also operate as a series of popular songwriting retreats that has spawned a large global community of 600 plus songwriters. Talk to us a bit about the focus of the retreats and how songwriters out there can take part in these retreats.
Well, up until March of this year, when I had my first and only one this year, I was producing about a dozen songwriting retreats a year all over.
Wow.
Mostly in Nashville and California, but I did do them. I did a couple in France and New York and Canada. The focus is to live my methodology. Right. So you come to a retreat for 5 days, you have your first day and you have your last day. But for those 3 days in between, you live, eat, and breathe my methodology. We start with yoga in the morning.
You pay to go to the retreat. Is that how it works?
They apply. Okay. I do not take just anybody.
Gotcha.
And I curate them as best I can.
Yeah.
I want writers that know what they're doing.
Right.
Even if they don't produce, they may just be a lyricist. They know what they're doing. They know how to get their song demo. So you come to the retreat and you do yoga. You have a healthy breakfast. You have in the morning, those morning sessions are all with me, with like the first day is all about the body and the voice. Every day is about the body. But we have a vocal teacher come, and I have exercises and different homework and videos. In the afternoon, they co-write. After dinner, they perform the song that they wrote that day. The second day is geared towards the mind and the lyrics. And the third day is to the melody and the soul. So all the exercises and all the movies and everything are geared towards those days. So by the time you come out of this process, you really realize that you need to stand in your perspective and tell a story. It's not about you telling me what everybody else is doing. It's what's your perspective. You find out a lot more about yourself. You know about what you're capable. I've put a couple dozen mirrors in front of you. So you can go, wow, I thought I was a good guitar player, but after hearing Tommy play, I think I need to brush up, or maybe just give up and hire somebody that's really good. Because that's a great choice too. So there's a lot of great, just great lessons that they learn by being able to turn their phones off and come away for 5 days and be in the presence of other people who are who want the same things, and you're not alone. You feel like you're not alone.
It sounds very much like songwriting as a lifestyle, and I hadn't really considered it that way before.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
You know what songwriters do? They take time out of their day to sit around and talk about what's going on in their day, to talk about what's going on in their lives and on their mind. They get to process their feelings. They get to process all their thoughts and ideas. We have to do it in, you know, and I'm a songwriter too. I make much more time for it, but the average person is doing it in between phone calls and in, you know, at dinner, in between, and, you know, some of them don't take time at all. And so there's such a pleasure to hang out with them.
I also find the way that you paired the days really interesting. So like you had mentioned the second day, I think, was attention to mind and lyrics. So obviously that's, you know, intentional. So maybe you can talk a bit about why you pair them that way, because that's really, really cool.
Well, and I'll show you that I have this done, but this is the diagram.
Awesome.
The voice and the body go together because the voice doesn't exist without the body. So we pair those together. The mind is a computer that never goes off, guys. It never goes. And I know that there's some out there that may need a jump start, but for most of us, it never goes off. So how do we get our mind, you know, get the judgment and get all that stuff out of there so we can create and tell our stories without the judgment? All right. And then the melody and the soul, well, this is about the heart and how you're feeling. And if you're feeling fine all the time, then your songs are just going to be fine. It's being able to go in and from your perspective, look at your situation. I had a client once who was having a hard time with his lyrics, really great rock writer. And he got really mad at me as I said, didn't you just break up with a girl? I mean, didn't you have like this terrible breakup? He was like, oh, my relationship is like a big ball of string in the corner over there. And if I start unraveling it, it's just going to go everywhere. And I'm, of course, busy writing his lyrics down on a piece of paper and giving it to him and going, there's your perspective. There are your lyrics. I don't want you to make everything okay. I don't want you to have to talk about it if you're not ready. Tell me you're not ready to talk about it. Yeah. There is a perspective.
Yeah, I always found with my band in particular, the more vulnerable our songs and lyrics were, the more they connected with people. You know, it's always harder to get to that vulnerable side, but I feel like that's really what connects with other humans, is getting that human emotion out of people and showing people that, you know, I always, you know, just the way that I've learned is like, you know, if I'm a little embarrassed to talk about it or say it in front of people, it's probably a good thing to sort of be writing it.
There you go.
You know, that's one thing I've learned. And I've when I'm picking up the guitar and I'm just writing, I'm like, well, I don't really want to say this, but I feel like it's kind of my duty to say it because that's part of being a songwriter, is putting those uncomfortable things out there.
Absolutely. You're right on there.
I want to also talk a bit about songwriting from an educational standpoint, because I know that a few years back in Paris, you did this packed TEDx talk, and it was very much about the importance of bringing songwriting into the classroom. So maybe you can, I imagine that's a subject you're passionate about. So maybe you can talk to us a bit about songwriting.
Just a little bit.
Just a pinch. Yeah. So from an educational standpoint and the positive impact it has on young people.
It's interesting. After doing these retreats for so long, and you're putting 3 people who have never met before in their lives, and, you know, from this experience and you put them together, and all of a sudden they become best friends. And it's amazing because they've sat around and they've talked about something jointly. You know, I usually give them a subject, but they talk about it, and they talk about it from their different perspectives. Really? Well, I came up from a divorced family. You came from a family that was together. So my perspective is a lot different. So they get to learn about each other. There's a communication on a deeper level when you ask somebody a question and they all have to answer it. So they're all in this together. So it got me thinking years ago that what I believe is missing, and I'm not saying that this is missing across the board, because there's some amazing schools and teachers out there, all right? But with a classroom, usually it is about a classroom sitting, looking at a teacher. And I think that what they're missing is learning from each other and learning about each other from each other. So when you take 3 kids, that are 10 years old, and one's the most popular, and one's, sporty, and one's, the brains, and you put them all together, and you and you ask them to tell you what they like most about themselves, and then they read it to each other. Everybody reads theirs, and then from there you create a story from those 3 stories, from those 3 perspectives. Excuse me. They then have to create a story that they all 3 can agree on, that they tell, not that they've lived, but that they can tell.
That's a hugely interesting exercise, because I imagine, especially for, young people, whether it's teenagers or even younger than that, that's probably a pretty uncomfortable prospect, to be sharing something you do or don't like about yourself, or we tend to keep that in,
I had a 45-year-old man freaking out in Paris in the hallway, just going, I was like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And he's like, this is the hardest questions I've ever been asked in my life. I don't know if I can answer. I was like, it's just a question, but you're right. And it's that's how you get to know about yourself.
Yeah.
That's how you get to know what you like and what you don't like. I mean, in 3 girls at 10 years old, when they all find out that even though you may be smarter than me, or you may be pretty, or whatever it is, we're all from divorced families, and we all know what that's like, or we're all dealing with a brother that's sick, or we're all dealing with, that brings out the human condition,
Those shared experiences.
Shared experience, yeah. I always say, if I was president of the United States, I'd make every parent, when their kids were 6 years old, that they'd have to go down and adopt a dog, and they'd have to feed it, take care of it, and train it. Because I believe that if you have that responsibility, if you have something to love, if you have something, that you just, it's harder to be mean to other human beings and other animals. So.
I love it. I mean, are you considering a presidential bid in 2024? I feel like it might be a good idea.
Well, it's interesting though. I had a dream one night that I thought, well, if Trump could win, this was like, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Why couldn't I run? And then I thought, well, what I would run on, it was like, well, I'd have everybody adopt a dog.
Love it.
Everybody plant a tree, everybody would have to grow one food for their existence,
I love it. So we're just going to do some rapid fire questions quickly. The first album you ever purchased?
I think it was a Monkees album.
Oh, fun.
I think it was Monkees. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Album that defined your youth?
I would have to say either between Moody Blues or Led Zeppelin.
Oh, fun. Which Led Zeppelin?
Nights in White Satin, Moody Blues, and the Led Zeppelin with Stairway to Heaven on it. I'm not good with names, sorry.
And best concert you've ever been to?
I think one of the best, I'll tell you, I was very, my husband was a huge promoter in town for many, many years. And this was right after 9/11. And U2 came to the Staples Center and performed, and it was pretty amazing, because it was just so, just the feeling and the patriotism and everything. That's probably one of the best concerts I've been to, just all around. Yeah.
Well, and just to your point about 9/11, it's like I think we've seen this with a lot of artists, and talk about the human condition, right? So it's like when you get everyone in a room together after, a really tragic and massive event like that, you really do feel that energy in the room. You feel like you're connecting and sharing something.
Yeah. And they performed it was different, they're always amazing, but yeah.
Okay. So I have to ask before we end off the episode, when do you think we'll be able to resume to a sort of normal world where live acts can perform again?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's not till 2022.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if all of next year they will come up with other things. I think the drive-ins are a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
I was talking to a client yesterday who's down in Nashville. I said, go find somebody with 5 acres and see if you can put 50 cars on them, and 3 cars at a time, get the people out, get them there. 3 cars. You could do it really safe, really beautifully. But start putting on your own things if you want, but just be safe. But I wouldn't be surprised. As much as we're supposed to have a vaccine, it's going to be a while, I think.
And what's your take on the live stream culture right now? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's some in between?
The ability and the convenience of being able to just click on and have Patty Griffith right there. She's playing Sunday, you know, she's doing one of these bands, you know, on the internet, is really great, you know, for somebody that I don't usually get to see. And I'd really love to see, you know, it's just like watching a video, you know? Yeah. So what I am not crazy about is, you know, I still think $20 for a concert on YouTube, on Zoom, is still a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
I really do. And I think that's, no one has to pay for anything. Okay. There's not a lot of marketing to do. You have to set up a mic, okay, stuff like that. But, you know, you charge everybody, you know, maybe $5. You know, if you get 1 million people to sign up, you know, if you even get, let's say, which I don't know what she would get at, like Patty Griffin, if she got 100,000 people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
I think that's all we have for this episode. We want to thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
And that's it for Music in Paranoid Times. We will see you guys on the next episode.